Anger feels powerful, right? Like fire in your veins. Like you're finally standing up for yourself. But what if I told you? Every time you get angry, you're not getting stronger. You're falling apart, quietly, piece by piece, like your soul is bleeding. And you don't even feel it. See, the Stoics believed that anger isn't strength. It's a slow suicide of the soul. And every time you lose control, you're giving away your power to something outside of you. So why do we still glorify rage? Why do we wear it like armor, when it's actually chains? Stay with me, because once you see what anger really costs you, you'll never raise your voice the same way again. Anger isn't what you think it is. It's not strength. It's not justice. It's not passion. It's an illusion of control while you're being silently controlled. You think you're standing up for yourself, but the Stoics would say you're falling apart. Seneca called anger a brief madness. And when you're angry, you're not rational. You're possessed. In that moment, you're not the master of your mind. You're its hostage. So why do we glorify it? Because anger feels powerful, righteous, heroic, especially when we think we're the victim. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The Stoics didn't see anger as fire. They saw it as rot. Not something to unleash, but something to remove, before it robs you of yourself. Epictetus said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. It's not the insult that ruins your day. It's the belief that you deserve better. It's not betrayal that shatters you. It's the expectation that people must be loyal." Anger isn't caused by what happens. It's caused by your belief that it shouldn't have. And that belief, that fragile sense of how life is supposed to be, is your real weakness. The Stoics weren't cold. They were precise. They knew emotions aren't evil, but they become dangerous when left unquestioned. That's why they didn't suppress anger. They interrogated it. They asked, "What am I assuming? What am I demanding from the world that it never promised?" Because when you trade reason for rage, you lose the only power you truly have, your response. And once you give up your response, you're no longer free. You're reactive, emotional, predictable. So next time you feel the fire rise, ask yourself, is this justice? Or just my ego throwing a tantrum? You think anger is a release. But the Stoics believed it's a form of self-harm. Not dramatic, not loud, but silent and spiritual, like a slow erosion of your inner structure. Every time you explode in rage, you're not winning. You're leaking something precious, your soul. The Stoics defined the soul not as something mystical, but as your rational, moral core. Your soul is your ability to think clearly, act with virtue, and remain unshaken by chaos. And anger is the direct enemy of all three. It clouds your thinking, distorts your values, and lets the outside world invade your inner peace. That's why Seneca warned, no plague has cost the human race more dearly than anger. Because unlike fear or sadness, anger feels righteous, which makes it even more dangerous. You shout to feel strong, but every outburst chips away at your dignity, your clarity, your control. And here's the part no one tells you. Most of the time, your anger doesn't change anything. The world keeps turning. The people you yelled at move on. But you stay stuck. Replay the argument, regret the words, reopen the wound, all because you let one moment of rage take the keys to your mind. Think about how many times you've said something in anger you couldn't take back. A friendship ruined, a relationship cracked, a reputation damaged, sometimes permanently. And for what? A moment where your ego felt heard, but your soul took the hit. The Stoics weren't interested in how loud you could get. They cared how still you could stay. They believed the person who angers you controls you, and that's a dangerous kind of slavery. Because if anyone, at any time, can hijack your emotions, then you're not free. You're fragile. Anger doesn't protect your soul. It exposes how unguarded it truly is. And every time you let it take over, you're telling the world, I don't own myself. I'm owned by reaction. You don't notice the damage in the moment, because rage numbs awareness. But after it fades, it leaves you empty, ashamed, and further from who you want to be. So the next time you feel justified in your fury, ask, what am I really giving up in this exchange? The Stoics didn't pretend that anger doesn't happen. They just refused to let it take the wheel. They understood that you can't stop the spark, but you don't have to fuel the fire. So what did they do when anger rose? They paused. Simple, but not easy. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, wrote in his journal, "You don't have to turn this into something." That one sentence is a Stoic weapon, a sword to cut the fuse before the explosion. You feel the heat, you notice it, but you don't act on it. Why? Because reacting is instinct, but choosing is strength. The Stoics trained their minds to create space between stimulus and response. Someone insults you? Pause. Traffic gets worse? Pause. Betrayal? Failure? Disrespect? Pause. That pause is where your freedom lives. You ask, is this worth my peace? Is this moment worth giving up my clarity, my dignity, my soul? Most of the time, the answer is no. But in anger, you forget to ask. So the Stoics made reflection a habit. They rehearsed their values before the battle began. Seneca suggested we start each day expecting trouble, not to be negative, but to build emotional immunity. If someone cuts you off in traffic, you already expected it, so you don't erupt. If someone is rude, you remind yourself. They act according to their nature, not mine. And if the moment feels too strong, Epictetus had one more strategy: delay. He said, when angry, count the cost. Don't reply to that message yet. Don't answer that call in rage. Don't slam the door. Let the anger cool. Then decide with reason, not reaction. Because anyone can shout, but it takes wisdom to remain silent when silence is power. And every time you choose stillness over fury, you reclaim a piece of your soul. That is Stoicism in action. Not coldness, but conscious control. Not weakness, but restraint. Not apathy, but emotional mastery. The goal isn't to be numb. It's to be invincible in the face of provocation. To feel the wave, and let it pass without pulling you under. Stoicism isn't just theory, it's practice, tested in the real world by people under pressure. Start with Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, absolute power, surrounded by betrayal and chaos. He could have executed enemies with a word, yet he wrote daily reminders to stay calm, stay kind, stay in control. He said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Imagine that. Your empire is threatened, and your response is wisdom, not war. Now look at Cato, the Stoic senator who opposed Caesar, knowing it would cost him everything. When others raged with fear or ambition, Cato stayed silent, composed, anchored in principle. Even in defeat, he didn't lash out. He chose to die with dignity rather than live under tyranny. His anger never controlled him, because his values already did. Fast forward to modern times. Think of Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison. Tortured, humiliated, he came out not burning with rage, but calm, focused, and willing to forgive, not because he forgot, but because he refused to let hatred shape his future. That is Stoicism without the label. Power over self before power over others. Even in sports, think of athletes who get provoked on the field but don't retaliate. They know one angry moment can cost the whole game. That's not weakness, that's elite control. Or think of the Navy SEAL who breathes before reacting. Even in a firefight, that pause, that stillness, that's what Stoics trained for. Clarity in chaos. The truth is, anyone can lose it, but not everyone can hold the line when emotions surge. And the ones who do? They earn trust. They earn respect. They become unshakable. Because when you master yourself, no one else can master you. The Stoics weren't just philosophers. They were warriors of the mind. And their discipline, their restraint, their silence in the storm. That's what real strength looks like. What happens after the storm? After the yelling, the slamming doors, the silent treatments, what's left behind? Not relief, not closure, just damage. Anger doesn't end when you calm down. It echoes. In the relationship you just fractured. In the words you can't unsay. In the parts of yourself you now feel ashamed to face. The Stoics knew this. That's why they said the real work begins after the fire burns out. Because if you don't heal from your anger, you'll repeat it, louder next time. So how do you rebuild your soul once it's been shaken? First, take responsibility, not blame. Blame is passive. It says, I'm broken. Responsibility says, I want to become whole again. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when you've done wrong, be quick to acknowledge it, and never do it again. The Stoic path isn't about guilt. It's about correction. You ask, what led me to that outburst? Was it pride, fear, entitlement? What part of me felt threatened? And why did I hand over control so easily? Second, make amends, not just with others, but with yourself. Apologize if you hurt someone, but also promise yourself, next time, I choose clarity over chaos. Third, reflect, daily, not just when things go wrong. Seneca said, each night, examine your day. Where did you stumble? Where did you stand tall? This isn't self-punishment, it's soul maintenance. You become what you review. And finally, practice forgiveness. Even toward yourself. You are not your worst moment. You are your next decision. The Stoics weren't perfect. They got angry too. But they refused to stay broken. They refused to let one outburst define their character. So they rebuilt. With discipline. With intention. With virtue. Because in the end, your soul isn't lost all at once. It's lost in moments you ignore. But it's also rebuilt, moment by moment, every time you choose the higher path. Not the loud path, not the easy path, the Stoic path. Imagine living with a law inside you. A personal code stronger than moods, louder than chaos. That's what the Stoics built. Not armor on the outside, but law on the inside. A law that says, I don't need to match your chaos with more chaos. A law that says, you don't get to pull me out of character. No matter what you say or do. This is not emotional suppression. It's emotional sovereignty. It's understanding that anger is not power. It's a signal to pause, not a license to react. When someone provokes you, you don't say, how dare they? You say, why am I affected? You don't ask how to control them. You ask how to control you. Because the only battlefield that matters is inside your mind. And when you win there, the outside world has nothing on you. That's why the Stoics trained their emotional muscles daily, like a soldier trains for war. Not because life is easy, but because it isn't. Not because people are kind, but because many aren't. You can't wait for peace to feel peace. You have to carry it with you, like a law written in your bones. Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. No more explaining your anger. No more saying, they started it. No more collapsing into rage every time life feels unfair. From now on, your character is your compass. Not your emotions. Not the crowd. Not revenge. You are not here to echo others. You're here to rise above them. This is Stoicism at its core. Emotion visits, but it doesn't rule. Pain hits, but it doesn't break you. Injustice comes, but you remain just. You become unshakable, not because the world is calm, but because you are. That is your new inner law. Not reactive, not defensive, just free. Every time you get angry, you think you're standing up for yourself. But often, you're just setting fire to everything you've built. The Stoics weren't trying to make you passive. They were trying to make you powerful. Powerful enough to walk away. Powerful enough to stay calm when others lose their minds. Powerful enough to protect your soul, even when your ego screams for war. Because here's the truth. You don't lose your soul in one big moment. You lose it in small reactions. The snap, the glare, the word you can't take back. But you can reclaim it. Every time you pause instead of explode. Every time you forgive instead of seek revenge. Every time you choose silence when silence is stronger than noise. So next time you feel the heat rise in your chest, ask yourself this: do I want to win this moment, or win myself back? Do I want to burn, or become the fire that doesn't consume, only illuminates? Your anger wants control. Your soul wants peace. And you? You get to choose who wins.